stop! Why did you click this video? Be honest. You clicked because you feel it, don't you? The exhaustion.
We treat Satan like a cartoon villain with a pitchfork. But we forget the truth.
A serial assumptions and addiction. But there is a way to bridge.
We tend to think we understand exhaustion, lack of sleep, too much work, too much information. But what many people are experiencing today feels different. It is not simply tiredness, and it is not a lack of motivation. It is a kind of numbness, a quiet dulling of attention, of desire, of meaning. People describe it the same way. Prayer feels empty. Focus slips away within seconds. Moments that once felt significant now pass unnoticed. The usual explanation is personal failure, a lack of discipline, weak willpower, poor habits. But there is another possibility. What if this state is not accidental? What if the numbness itself is the mechanism? Not temptation, not chaos, but desensitization. Throughout history, the adversary has often been portrayed as impulsive, a tempter, a deceiver acting in the moment. But that image ignores something important: experience, an ancient familiarity with the human condition, an understanding that control does not require force, only influence. To corrupt desire, one does not need to destroy it, only to redirect it. And to silence a soul, one does not need suffering, only noise. Modern neuroscience offers an unexpected parallel. At the center of human motivation is a neurotransmitter called dopamine. It is commonly described as the chemical of pleasure, but this is misleading. Dopamine does not create satisfaction. It creates pursuit. It is what compels a person to seek, to build, to explore, and, in a spiritual sense, to search for God. In natural conditions, dopamine is released in modest amounts. Effort precedes reward. Meaning is built slowly. But the modern environment no longer operates on this scale.
You won't believe what happened next.
Breaking news. Click here now.
Get 50% off. Limited time offer.
We now live surrounded by what researchers call superstimuli, artificial triggers engineered to produce dopamine spikes far beyond natural levels. Endless scrolling, high contrast imagery, instant novelty, constant feedback. Each individual hit seems harmless, but the brain does not experience them individually. It experiences the total load. When dopamine levels remain elevated for long periods, the brain adapts, not by becoming stronger, but by becoming less sensitive. This process is known as downregulation. To protect itself, the brain reduces the number of dopamine receptors. The result is subtle. Activities that once felt meaningful now feel flat. Silence becomes uncomfortable. Stillness feels empty. The problem is not that nothing feels good. The problem is that nothing feels real. In theological language, this condition has another name: a hardened heart. Not stubbornness, not rebellion, but a loss of sensitivity, an inability to respond to what is quiet and subtle. This connection appears clearly in an ancient story. The prophet Elijah experiences wind powerful enough to tear mountains apart, then an earthquake, then fire. But the presence of God is in none of them. It comes afterwards as a still, small voice, barely perceptible, easy to miss. This presents a problem because the modern world speaks almost exclusively in extremes: loud, fast, relentless. If a mind becomes calibrated to constant stimulation, it does not merely ignore the whisper, it becomes incapable of hearing it. The Apostle Paul describes a similar conflict, wanting to do what is right, yet repeatedly failing to do it. This is often framed as moral weakness, but there is also a neurological dimension. High-intensity stimulation bypasses the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for reflection, restraint, and prayer. By the time awareness returns, the action is already complete. The result is guilt without understanding, and repetition without insight. This is why effort alone rarely works. Trying harder does not restore sensitivity. Willpower cannot compete with chemistry. A whisper cannot be heard inside a storm. The storm must first be quieted. This is where an ancient practice becomes relevant. Fasting, often misunderstood as punishment or ritual, but at its core, fasting is subtraction, the deliberate removal of excess stimulation, not only from food, but from noise, from novelty, from constant input. When stimulation is reduced, discomfort follows, restlessness, irritability, an urge to escape silence. But this phase is temporary. As stimulation decreases, sensitivity slowly returns. Meaning becomes perceptible again. Stillness regains depth, and the whisper becomes audible. The renewal of the mind is not metaphorical. It is physiological and spiritual at the same time. If the world feels muted, if meaning feels distant, the problem may not be absence, but overload. And the solution may not be addition, but removal. Silence is not empty. It is where perception is restored, and where God has always spoken.